My son-in-law poured a full glass of red wine over my head at my daughter's graduation dinner and told the table I was an embarrassment. What Trent Holbrook didn't know was that the restaurant we were sitting in belonged to me. Actually, 4 others in the city did too, but I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Leonard Briggs. I'm 64 years old, and for most of my adult life, people have assumed they know exactly who I am the moment they see me. Calloused hands, work boots that never quite come clean, a face that spent more time under the sun than in air-conditioned offices. They see all that, and they stop looking. That's always been fine by me. I came up hard. Grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, third of 5 kids. Father worked a tire plant until his back gave out. When I was 17, I got a job washing dishes at a diner on Route 66. Not because anyone made it, because we needed the money and I was old enough to get it. I learned more in that kitchen than I ever did in school. I learned how a restaurant breathes, how the morning shift feels different from the lunch rush, how the owner, a heavy-set man named Nobody, I'll mention, watched everything from the corner, never seemed to move, but missed nothing. I paid attention to all of it. By the time I was 22, I was managing the place. By 28, I'd borrowed enough to buy a failing breakfast spot on the east side of the city. It smelled like grease and broken promises when I walked in for the first time as the owner. I thought that was beautiful. I knew what to do with it. I never stopped thinking of myself as the dishwasher. That wasn't false humility. It was just true. I never forgot what it felt like to scrub someone else's plates at 6 in the morning, back aching, smelling like old coffee. It kept me sharp. It kept me from turning into the kind of person who looks through people instead of at them. The restaurants grew slowly. 1 became 2, became 4, became, eventually, 11 locations across Oklahoma and Texas, along with a small catering operation and a commissary kitchen that supplies 3 hotel chains. I don't advertise any of this. I don't wear it. I drive a 2009 Ford F-150 that I've had the engine rebuilt twice. I wear the same brand of jeans I've worn since the 90s. People who meet me socially tend to assume I'm a contractor, or maybe retired maintenance. I never correct them. My wife, Sandra, passed 11 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, 4 months from diagnosis to the end. She knew about everything we'd built. She helped build it. She was the one who kept the books in the early years, sitting at our kitchen table with a calculator and a legal pad, cigarette burning in the ashtray even though we'd both supposedly quit. She was sharp as a blade and twice as quick. When she died, I moved the accounting to a firm and stopped talking about the business to almost anyone. My daughter, my girl, she's the reason I get up in the mornings. She was 26 when all of this happened, finishing her doctorate in molecular biology at the University of Texas. 7 years of work, 3 papers published, a dissertation that her advisor described as the most original work to come through the department in 15 years. She'd done all of it on her own. I'd offered money for her education twice. She'd refused both times. Said she wanted to know she earned it. I didn't push. That stubborn streak came straight from her mother. She'd been with Trent Holbrook for 2 years when she brought him to meet me. He flew in from Dallas, where he worked for a private equity firm. He was 32, wore the kind of clothes that require dry cleaning, and had a handshake that wanted you to know something. He drove a leased Porsche, and he mentioned this within the first 15 minutes, which told me a good deal more than he intended. We sat in my living room. Small house, same one I've had since the 90s. I hadn't felt the need to upgrade. The furniture is comfortable, and the kitchen is big, and there's a workshop out back where I go when I need quiet. Trent looked around the way a man does when he's trying not to look like he's looking. My daughter went to make coffee. The moment she left the room, Trent leaned forward with the energy of someone about to do me a favor. "Sir, I want to be up front with you. I know she doesn't come from much, and I respect that she's worked hard. I just want to make sure we're on the same page about the kind of life I'm going to be able to provide for her. A life you probably couldn't give her growing up." I looked at him for a long moment. "What kind of life is that?" I asked. He smiled. "The right schools for their kids eventually. Real estate in a good neighborhood. Memberships. Travel." He waved a hand. "You know, security." "She seems pretty secure to me," I said. He laughed, the way someone laughs when they think you've made a small joke. Right, of course." He glanced toward the kitchen, then back at me. "I just want to be transparent. My family has high standards. My father's in finance. My mother sits on 2 nonprofit boards. There's a social world that comes with where I'm headed, and I want to make sure she's prepared for it." I nodded slowly. She's presenting research at Johns Hopkins in the spring, I said. She seems to be managing the social world fine. His smile didn't reach his eyes after that. She came back with the coffee. He was charming to her, attentive, funny even. I watched how he touched her arm when she said something smart, the almost imperceptible way he'd redirect the conversation back to himself. She was so bright in that room, she lit the whole place up, and he stood near that light like he was warming himself at someone else's fire. I called my son that night. He lives in Portland now, builds custom furniture, married with 2 kids. We talk every Sunday, but I called midweek, which I almost never do. You met him, he said when he picked up. Not a question. She bring him down to the house? Yeah, and he's the kind of man who smiles when he's deciding whether you're worth his time. That's not good, no. But she loves him, or she thinks she does. What are you going to do? Same thing I always do. Watch and wait. The engagement happened 3 months later. Trent proposed at a rooftop bar in downtown Austin. 3-carat ring, the photo went on her social media. She was crying happy in the picture, and I sat with my coffee the next morning and told myself I might be wrong about him. People surprise you. I've been surprised before. They set a date for June. Small ceremony she wanted. Dinner with family afterward at a restaurant she loved in Austin. A farm-to-table place called Overland that she'd been going to since graduate school. Trent's mother called me 2 weeks after the engagement. She had a voice like she'd been practicing being polite her whole life without quite mastering it. She wanted to discuss the rehearsal dinner arrangements. She used the phrase family resources 3 times in 4 minutes, each time in a way that made clear she was referring to hers, not mine. She asked whether I'd be able to contribute to anything or whether I was more comfortable just attending. I'm comfortable attending, I said. She moved on. Told me the Holbrook family would be handling the rehearsal dinner. A restaurant in Dallas, very exclusive. I shouldn't worry about the cost. She made sure I understood that twice. I let her talk. The graduation dinner was my idea. My daughter was defending her dissertation in May, 3 weeks before the wedding, and I wanted to do something for her. I told her I'd make a reservation somewhere nice, her choice. She picked Overland. Of course she did. It was her favorite. What she didn't know, what I'd never told her, was that I'd owned Overland for 4 years. When the original owners wanted to retire, they called me. It was a good restaurant with a good kitchen and a loyal customer base, and they wanted someone who'd take care of it. I'd been eating there since she was in her 2nd year. I bought it quietly. I kept the same staff, same menu, same feel. My name isn't on the website. It doesn't need to be. We were 7 at the table that evening. My daughter, my son who'd flown down from Portland, my son's wife, Trent's parents, and me. The reservation was under my daughter's name. The general manager, a sharp woman who'd been with the restaurant since before I owned it, greeted us at the door. She caught my eye and gave me a small nod, and I gave one back, and that was that. The table was good. Window seat, the last of the evening light coming in orange over the street outside. My daughter was glowing. She'd defended that morning. The committee had accepted the dissertation with minor revisions, and her advisor had shaken her hand and said she'd earned the doctorate 3 times over. She was 26 years old, and she'd built something real. I was proud in a way I don't have words for. Trent's father, a man named after himself in the way that certain families continue to do, was pleasant enough to start. He asked my daughter about her research in the careful tone of someone who doesn't understand what's being said, but knows he should appear interested. His wife kept touching her pearls. Trent was on his 2nd glass of wine before the appetizers arrived. My son kept the conversation moving. He's good at that, easy with people, asks questions that make them feel seen. Trent's mother warmed to him more than she'd warmed to me. I watched and ate my bread. The entrees came. The kitchen had outdone themselves, which they tend to do when they know I'm in the building, though I hadn't told them to do anything special. My daughter was telling the table about her research, the specific protein she'd spent 4 years studying, what it might mean for how we treat certain inflammatory diseases. She was good at making it accessible without dumbing it down. My son's wife was asking follow-up questions. Trent was looking at his phone under the table. His father leaned toward me during a lull. "So, Leonard," he said, "what is it you do?" "I'm in the restaurant business," I said. "Oh." He seemed mildly surprised. "Management? I own a few places." He nodded in the way people do when they're being polite about something small. "Well, food and beverage, that's a tough industry. High turnover, thin margins. Trent's firm has looked at a few restaurant investments. Never penciled out. They rarely do without the right operator, I said. He smiled thinly and turned back to his wine. Trent was on his fourth glass when the dessert menus arrived. My daughter was laughing at something my son had said, that real laugh she has, the one that sounds like it surprised her. Trent watched her laugh, and something crossed his face that I can't fully describe. Not love. Something more possessive than that. He flagged down our server. More wine, he said, without looking at her. She refilled his glass. He turned to me. Leonard. He said my name like he was testing the weight of it. My daughter told me you used to be in the kitchen. Cooking, right, before you got into management? I worked kitchens when I was starting out, yes. He nodded slowly, performing something for the table. I think that's great, he said loudly. I really do. Honest work. Blue collar. America needs people like that. His father smiled at this. His mother folded her hands. My daughter looked at Trent. He was gesturing now, wineglass moving. Not everyone is cut out for finance or research, or he gestured toward my daughter. The academic track. Some people are just built for the physical work. There's dignity in that. There is, I said. He looked at me like I'd agreed with him. My son put his fork down very carefully. The thing is, Trent continued, I want our kids to have options. That's why it matters who you marry, who your family is, what kind of foundation you're building from. He looked at my daughter, and I know you didn't have the most, he paused, resourced upbringing. But that's okay. That's actually part of what I love about you. You're hungry in a way that private school kids aren't. The table was very quiet. My daughter said his name again, lower this time. I'm paying you a compliment, he said, the wine making him magnanimous. I'm saying your dad washing dishes, that built something in you. Grit. I respect that. He looked at me with the expression of a man waiting to be thanked. I started to say something. I didn't get the chance. He reached for the open bottle of Bordeaux, misjudged the pour, and rather than acknowledge the mistake, he swung his glass toward me in a toast gesture, and the wine left the glass in a long red arc and landed across my shirt, my shoulder, and the side of my face. The table went silent. He looked at the wine spreading across my collar, and for a half-second I thought he might apologize. Instead he laughed, the laugh of someone who has never had to clean his own clothes. My God, he said. Leonard, I'm sorry. You should have been sitting farther back. He flagged for a server. Can we get some napkins? He spilled. I hadn't spilled anything. I was sitting still. My son stood up halfway and then sat back down when I caught his eye. I said nothing. I took the napkin the server brought me. I pressed it to my shirt. I looked at Trent, who was already half turned away, refilling his own glass, done with the incident. His mother was saying something about club soda. His father was looking at the dessert menu. My daughter was looking at me. Her face was doing something complicated. Dad, she started. It's all right, I said. It's not, she said quietly. I asked her quietly if I could handle it. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. I set the napkin on the table. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't stand up or perform anything. I just looked at Trent until he felt it and turned back around. Trent, I said. Yeah? He still had that half smile. Tell me something. When you walk into a restaurant, what do you see? He blinked. What do you mean? I mean, what do you actually see? The decor? The wine list? The other guests? I guess, yeah. Why? I see the kitchen first, I said. I always have. I can tell within 30 seconds whether the back of house is running well. The way the servers move, how long the gap is between a table being cleared and being reset, whether the host is calm or managed. This restaurant right now, it's running clean. Good spacing between courses. Wine service is attentive. That matters because this is a hard room to pace. The window tables lose the kitchen by 2 extra steps. He was looking at me with that expression again. The one that said he was deciding whether I was interesting or boring. That's a lot of detail for a customer, he said. I'm not exactly a customer, I said. That stopped him. My general manager appeared at the table. She'd been watching from across the room, and I'd caught her eye a minute earlier. She came to my shoulder quietly, professionally. Mr. Briggs, she said. I'm so sorry. I saw what happened. Can I take care of anything for you? Trent frowned. Mr. Briggs? She looked at him calmly. Leonard Briggs. He owns Overland. Has for 4 years. She turned back to me. I can have someone from the kitchen bring a fresh shirt if you'd like. I think we have something in your size in the back office. The table had gone very still. Trent's father set down his dessert menu. Trent was looking at me. At the general manager. Back at me. You own this restaurant, he said. I own this one, I said. 3 others in Austin, 2 in Dallas, 1 in San Antonio, 2 in Houston, plus a commissary kitchen and a catering operation. But this one is my daughter's favorite, so this is where I wanted to take her tonight. My son was very carefully not smiling. He was looking at the ceiling, jaw tight. Trent's mother said something low to her husband that I didn't catch. Trent laughed. The same laugh as before, but it landed differently now. It had nowhere solid to stand. "You're serious," he said. My daughter said quietly, "I told you he was in the restaurant business." "You said he worked in restaurants." I said he was in the restaurant business. There's a difference. He looked at her, then at me, then at his parents. His father's face had gone very neutral, the way financiers' faces go when they're recalculating. "Why didn't you say anything?" Trent said to me. He stopped. "When you told me working with your hands was something to be managed out of the next generation," I said. "When you told my daughter her value was in being hungry, rather than in the 7 years of original scientific work she just completed. When you poured wine on me and told the server I spilled it. You mean during any of those moments?" "I didn't. I was just—" He stopped again. The table was silent except for the ambient sound of the restaurant, other conversations, the quiet efficiency of the kitchen somewhere behind us. My daughter reached across the table and took my hand, just for a second. Then she sat back. "Trent," she said, "I need you to apologize to my father." His jaw tightened. I wasn't trying to insult anyone. I was making conversation. "You told him blue-collar workers aren't cut out for anything more. You implied I'm a charity project because of how I grew up, and then you poured wine on him and told everyone he did it himself. That's not conversation. That's who you are when you're comfortable." "Babe, don't," she said. "Just apologize." He looked at me. Something moved across his face that might have been genuine. I want to be fair to him, even now. There was a flicker of something real. "Leonard," he said, "I'm sorry. I had too much to drink and I was—" "It's not about the wine," I said. "The wine doesn't matter. I'm not angry about the wine." "Then what?" "My daughter is about to walk across the stage and accept a doctorate she earned without anyone's help. She's going to spend the rest of her career doing work that might genuinely help people live longer and better. And tonight at her dinner, you spent more time making sure she knew you were providing for her than you did asking her what the research actually means. That's what I want you to think about. Not the wine, not my restaurants. Just that." He didn't say anything. His mother was looking at her hands. His father had pushed his chair back slightly, the distance a man makes when he's deciding how far to stand from something. My general manager asked, very quietly, whether I'd like her to bring anything else. I thanked her and said we were fine for now, and she returned to her post with the particular grace of someone who has seen difficult tables before and knows when to disappear. We finished dessert, mostly in quiet. My son's wife made one gentle attempt to redirect the conversation toward the Portland house renovation they were doing, and my son has picked it up and ran with it, bless him, and for 15 minutes we talked about old-growth timber and whether reclaimed floors were worth the extra cost. When the bill came, Trent reached for it reflexively, the gesture of a man used to paying. I put my hand flat on the check first. "I've got it," I said. He didn't argue. Trent's parents said their goodbyes outside on the sidewalk. His father shook my hand and held it a beat longer than the first time. Something in his eyes that was almost respect, or at least the recognition that something had shifted. His mother told my daughter the dinner had been lovely, which wasn't quite an apology and wasn't quite not one. Trent stood with my daughter on the sidewalk while I talked to my son for a moment. I could see them in my peripheral vision, his hand on her arm. Her standing slightly away from him, a posture I recognized. I'd seen it before in difficult moments between people, that small physical distance that says something has changed and they both know it. My son hugged me. He smelled like sawdust and his wife's perfume. He held on a little longer than usual. "You okay, Dad?" "I'm good." That was something else. He needed to see it. "Yeah." He exhaled. "What happens now? With the restaurant? Or with him?" "Either. The restaurant runs fine without me commenting on it. And as for him, that's her decision to make." He nodded. Mom would have loved that moment. "She would have thought I was being dramatic," I said. He laughed. "Yeah, but she still would have loved it." My daughter and I ended up driving home in my truck after Trent took a rideshare back to their apartment. She didn't want to be in the car with him, she said. Just needed a minute. She sat in the passenger seat, and we drove through Austin at that hour, when the traffic has cleared and the city feels like a different place. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Why didn't you ever tell me? About the restaurants? About any of it? You always let me think we were just getting by." "You were never getting by," I said. "Your college fund was fully funded the month you were born. Your mother and I made sure of that. You chose not to use it, which is your right, and I respected it. But you were never in danger. She was looking out the window. Why did you let me think otherwise? Because I wanted you to build something you could point to and say I did that. Not my father did that. Not my family's money did that. You. Your work. Do you understand why that mattered to me? She was quiet for a while. I thought you were proud of how careful you were with money, she said. I am careful, I said, and I'm also not worried about money. Those things can be true at the same time. She looked at me. Her face in the dashboard light reminded me so sharply of her mother that for a moment I couldn't breathe. I think I need to have a serious conversation with Trent, she said. That's between you two. But you think I should? I think you should do whatever you'd tell one of your grad students to do if they described tonight to you. She was quiet for the rest of the drive. 3 weeks later, she defended with distinction. Her advisor gave a small speech at the reception about the significance of the work. 3 people in the audience were from a pharmaceutical research group, and they sought her out specifically afterward. She shook their hands and listened carefully and said she'd think about it. She called off the engagement 2 days before the wedding. She called me on a Tuesday morning, very calm, voice like still water. She said she'd had a series of conversations with Trent and that she'd come to understand some things about how he saw her. Not who she was, she said, who he needed her to be. She said there was a difference and she decided it mattered. The ring was a very good one, I said. You should let a lawyer look at the situation. Dad, she said, I don't care about the ring. I know, I said. I'm just saying get advice before you do anything formal. A good attorney can handle the paperwork so you don't have to think about it. She laughed, surprised. You already talked to someone. I had a brief conversation. Yes. She was quiet. Then, you were ready for this. I was hoping I was wrong, I said. I really was. I know, Dad. She kept her apartment, kept her name on the research, accepted the consulting offer from the pharmaceutical group, and negotiated an arrangement that lets her keep running her own lab at the university. Trent moved back to Dallas 6 weeks after the engagement ended. I heard through someone that the firm he works for restructured and his position changed considerably, but that had nothing to do with me. I want to be clear about that. His mother sent a note. Handwritten, 3 lines, said the dinner had shown her something she should have seen sooner. I wrote back. Short, wished them well. Some things don't need to go on longer than they went. My daughter came for Thanksgiving this year. She and her brother cooked while I sat on the kitchen stool and gave suggestions nobody asked for. Her cat, a large gray thing she adopted in September, slept on the couch the entire day and showed no interest in any of us. She seemed lighter, not just happy, actually lighter, like she'd been carrying something that had quietly been set down. At some point in the evening, she asked me if I regretted spending the money on the restaurant group, instead of on something flashier, something I could have shown her growing up. I told her the truth. I said I never thought of it as money spent. I thought of it as kitchens kept running, people employed, good food made by people who cared about it. That's not a portfolio to me, that's just what I do. She looked at me over her wine glass. She has her mother's eyes, that particular way of seeing right through a thing. You're going to be insufferable about the graduation dinner for the rest of your life, aren't you? She said. Probably, I said. She laughed. That same real laugh. The one that sounds like it caught her by surprise. I still drive the same truck, still wear the same jeans. The workshop out back has a project I've been meaning to finish for 2 years, and maybe this winter I'll get to it. I eat dinner at one of my restaurants a couple times a week, sit at the bar, talk to the staff, make sure the kitchen is running the way I want. Nobody who doesn't already know would guess what I'm doing there. Just an old man at the bar with calloused hands and a cup of coffee, watching the room. That's always been enough for me. That's always been exactly enough.